Okay, so for today, for this month's Fearless Fridays interview, I'm here with Laura Gwilliam. And Laura, maybe you can dive straight in and tell us who you are and what transition you've been going through lately.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. I was a lawyer in London, specialising in dispute resolution, and going over evidence, for international law firms, and was doing that for 3 years after qualification, and decided September last year to I was freelancing, so I stopped the project I was working on and went off to India for 3 months to qualify as a yoga teacher. And during my time out there, I kind of had the inclination before I went that there was a possibility I wouldn't be returning to doing what I was doing. But I went through this amazing journey out there and decided that, that was not going to be the plan. And life did throw a few curveballs to make that decision a little bit easier for me to make. And so I'm kind of telling people I'm taking this year out to pursue what makes me happy, to kind of keep projects that I've been working on a little bit closer to my heart. It's quite difficult when you're branching out doing something new or different to what people all those years have expected me to be on this path. I've kind of learnt along the journey to pick and choose who you share what you're doing with, too, because sometimes, we're all riddled with self-doubt when you like completely switch course in life. And then when you tell people that you really care about, or like really good friends for years, what you're doing, and then they're like, oh, like, how's that going to work? And then you're like, oh, and so I've just decided to say, well, I'm pursuing happiness for a year and we'll see where it takes me. So I'm now a yoga teacher, and I'm working on some projects. So
That's great. Well, some already really interesting things you've said there. I mean, law, I guess, is one of those quite sort of traditional, prestigious, sort of high-level jobs, and I guess the change there is something that a lot of people perhaps don't understand, and I can definitely understand keeping some ideas close to your heart. I think there's a time for talking to people and getting inspiration and exploring and discussing, but then there's also time for sort of incubation and, as you said, protecting it and, believing in yourself and working on it, and not necessarily sharing with every person who happens to ask you, because as someone once said to me, their fears and their concerns are what they're expressing, right? It's not about you, it's their own insecurities that are coming to the fore. So it's
definitely
good to protect yourself a little bit from that doubt from other people as well while you're in the early days.
Definitely. And that's been another of life's lessons over the last few months, actually, because I'm a massive oversharer. So I'll go into a wedding or something and just be like, right, okay, this is going to be the line I tell people when they say, so what are you doing at the moment? And then I'll have a espresso martini, and then I'm like, blah. So it's just kind of, and then you get that kind of that kind of like, oh, again, like, and then you're like, oh damn, I've done it again. So like you say, it's important to share your ideas for inspiration, but it's picking and choosing, I think, is really important.
Different audiences. I actually interviewed someone, Dave Assillo, who's now sort of a storyteller, a writer, also a yoga teacher. He used to be in politics, and he said, he recommends he helps people craft their stories now, and he recommends having kind of short, sort of elevator pitch, but one sentence. For me, I now say I'm a personal coach and business consultant, full stop. Most people don't care, that's fine, they don't really know what that is, but whatever, and they move on. And if that's all, then that's fine. And then there are the people who really care, who you're close to, who are the right kind of people, I guess, to support you, and they might dive a bit deeper, and then you can go Blair after the espresso martini. I've definitely done that myself too, so.
I've heard of that, actually, the elevator pitch. I don't know if actually because this is, I think, how we kind of met was through Escape the City.
Yes, I think so. I saw you, I forget now, but you were posting something very interesting, and I jumped on it and said, I want to interview you. So.
Yeah. So, and it was the first time I ever went there, when you kind of, somewhere years ago, I signed up to their email subscriptions. And then just one day, I was working on a project that was literally 5 minutes. It was in St. Paul's, and they're in Bank. And I was like, there's really no excuse not to go for a free breakfast and meet some super inspiring people. And it was actually the very first one where they were like, have you thought about having this pitch? It's just a simple one-liner. But again, as an oversharer, I think that's something. It's like one line. How will I
Yes.
get to the point in one line? But,
and especially when you have that kind of portfolio career, as you said, different projects and maybe not all making 100% sense to other people. For you, it's sort of holistic and it makes sense, but for others, it might seem a bit random and different things we're working on. So
yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I've already, jumped on you because you just made some interesting points in your introduction. But I guess my first question is, what was the moment at which you decided, I know you said you went away to India, and that seemed like sort of officially, I guess, a temporary thing, but you felt that probably it would be a permanent change. But what was it that sort of kicked off the change in your mind, and when you decided, law is not for me anymore?
Okay, so it was kind of like a slow unraveling. There was a niggle that was different from all the other kind of the voice inside your head. Have you read The Power of Now?
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, okay, so I'm not mental. Everyone has this voice in their head that's constantly telling them they're not good enough, or whatever it is. But then there was this other voice inside that would pitch up every day for work. I was, at the time, I'm married and my husband was based in Northern Ireland. Mm-hmm. And I would be getting up at 4:00 in the morning on a Monday, flying to London, working 12 to 16 hours a day in the city, living in a lodging in just a tiny bedroom in someone else's house just to make it financially viable, and then flying home to Northern Ireland on a Friday, completely wiped, and doing it from the age of 26. And just within months, it was unsurprising, pretty much to everyone else other than myself, because you always think you're indestructible, that I just felt like I was about 60. Although there's some there's lots of 60-year-olds with lots of life in them, but I was just felt done. There was no life in me at the weekends. The things that I used to love doing, I didn't have the energy to do anymore. And I guess there was this other voice, which I think, and I've come to realize now, is your intuition and that gut instinct, your soul, your spirit, whatever you want to call it. That was just saying, like, this isn't right. Like, this isn't living. Like, why? I actually just watched Collateral Beauty with Will Smith, and at the very beginning, he works in an advertising agency on Madison Avenue, and he's saying, like, what's your why? Like, why do you do this? Why do you do that? And really, not to sound like too idealistic, but a lot of what you do should be driven by, like, the love of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I just felt very unhappy and deeply unfulfilled. And I guess you're used to interviewing people who have really good professional careers, and they've been high achievers all their life and done well at school and university and gone on to work for amazing firms. And so you're kind of spun this story that, this will all be worth it. And then you come out the other side of all your training. And for me, that was 6 years of legal training and law school and the training contract. And then was like, right, well, then what's now? So I just started to realize that the sacrifices I was making that were having a massive effect on my relationships, my lifestyle, and then it started to affect my health. Mm-hmm. And I'd always been healthy. I'd ran marathons, like races. My hobby was mountain biking, which I then began to do less and less. And I started to suffer with digestional health problems, which I know is becoming increasingly more common. Every other person on Instagram is like a new kind of home cook who says they had some digestive problem and that they were super healthy and didn't really understand why and stuff. So I just started to realize a lot of it was being caused by stress and mental health problems, which just, I guess, you read about. But then if you ever said to someone, like, I'm kind of suffering with depression and things, but I think it's to do with, like, I'm not suffering with depression. I think my depression is actually causing my other physical health problems. And people just don't seem to get that, or don't seem to talk about it so much. So I guess ultimately it wasn't me falling. It wasn't the career itself. It wasn't the law. It was the lifestyle that I was leading. And I, being married to someone in the army, he couldn't change his job, so one of us has to change. And I had been fighting that for years and years, saying, I will never give up my career for you. And but there is a point where it's like, well, either your marriage will fail and your health, or you're going to have to make some big changes. So yeah. And then so it started with this niggling feeling, and then I had this horrible moment at work one day a couple of years ago, and I just literally felt like somebody had switched off a button. I had zero energy, and being a freelancer, I obviously had the autonomy to say, I'm taking the afternoon off, and I got on the tube and fell asleep on the tube in the middle of the day, and went past the stop where I was staying at, woke up, got back on, somehow managed to get back to my lodgings, and at 3:00 in the afternoon just completely passed out, fully clothed in my office attire, and woke up the next day and was just like, what on earth was that about? Just completely cooked. And then it wasn't until 6 months after that I actually had a breakdown in November 2015. And thankfully, I was at home in Northern Ireland when it happened, and I never returned to work for 5 months. And it took a lot of resilience. And I really don't really know where that came from, to be honest, because when you're that low, like you don't ever see a way out. So I really have no idea where that kind of first spark of like, right, well, this has to stop came from, but it thankfully did. And so yeah, so I guess it was a culmination of all of those things. But after the 5 months, I went back to London, but at that point realised that this isn't going to be forever. I'm going back just to kind of be back in society again, rather than being at home in Northern Ireland, to earn a little bit of money, and knew that by then my course in India was booked, and it was just a case of a couple of months back in London. And then that was it.
Great. It was interesting that I guess your intuition and your body, your health sort of knew the answer before you did. And it's a shame, I guess, that we let it go so far that you have to reach that low point. But as you said, there's all these beliefs. I mean, you said it's idealistic to want to enjoy your work. I mean, I think it shouldn't be idealistic. That should be sort of a base assumption. And you also mentioned, sort of the expectations we as women have, like, of course I should have my high-powered career and I shouldn't change that for my relationship. And I think there are all these stories we tell ourselves and the beliefs that we inherit. And then suddenly you're sort of in your 30s and you think, hang on a second, this is not actually serving me. It doesn't fit with the life I want to lead. And as you said, your health or your intuition somehow knows that it's not right anymore, and then you begin to unravel all those things,
yeah. And you just actually touched on a couple of points there when you were saying about it's surprising you kind of ignore your body and for so long, and that intuition. And it's just some of the things that I've learnt over the last few months. And I guess there was just lots of things other than my yoga TTC that I did, which was only a month. And I was out there for 3 months. So I tried to immerse myself in Ayurvedic health courses and things, and to just do lots and lots of self-exploration, I guess, because it's then, well, for your whole adult life so far, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And you also then build up expectations of how that will affect the rest of your life, the kind of income level that you'll earn, and the house that you'll buy, and all these things that then, if you take that away, that we let it define us so much, our careers, and that when you take that away, you really are left with this blank canvas to kind of build up again. But I just realised, like, the body is so much more powerful than we think, and we just let the mind run wild 99% of the time. But there does come a point, I think, if you're not really listening to your body or to your intuition, that thankfully it will say, right, no, enough is enough. And you might ignore your mum who keeps saying, Laura, I'm worried about you. You need to, slow down. You blah blah blah. And you're like, yes, mum. But then there thankfully is a point when actually your body or your intuition like shouts up and is like, no, your mum is right. She's not just being.
Well, the other interesting thing you said was that it wasn't the career itself, right? It's not the law, it's the lifestyle. And I think when we're applying to jobs, certainly after uni, we're thinking about the career and we look at the job descriptions and we never really ask those questions like, okay, but what will that mean in terms of, and then the person you've met lives in another place or has a different career or whatever the reason. But like, it's actually the other stuff around it that has a much bigger effect and implication than the job itself in a way. So there's all these other factors, whether it's your health and well-being or travel and relationships and all this stuff that actually, becomes more significant in a way than the sort of job title itself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's definitely something that in this, in the year of pursuing happiness or whatever my elevator pitch is at the moment, is that, that feeling of pursuing, it's a bit like the desire map, which is rather than saying I want this car and this house and this job, to say I want to feel energized, I want to feel happy, I want to feel fulfilled, and designing your life based upon what you want to feel rather than trying to attain things and then hoping that they make you feel something. Like I'm sure it's a common thing to say, we all want money, but it's not really like, well, there's a whole pile of money, but it's actually the spending it and what you do with it that actually makes you feel something. So, so it's like you said, it was definitely a lifestyle, which was, I don't want to sit on my bum at an office desk for 14 hours a day. I want to be outside. I want to meet more people. So it was those things that kind of changed my course massively.
And you've mentioned a few sort of difficulties along the way. What would you say was the biggest challenge you faced as you went through this transition?
We were just talking about this a moment ago. It's the uncertainty. Yeah. Having very much had a life so far of school and then your A-levels and university, professional training, applying for jobs on qualification, there was always this element of structure and as kind of a constant high achiever of, well, I once led a group of people up Kilimanjaro. So you tick that box, right? Well, and everyone was like, wow. And then, right, I'm going to run Paris Marathon. It was always this achieve. And although a lot of it actually felt quite empty, and so hence why you'd be like, well, what's next? Because you never felt satisfied at that. It was also, looking back, providing a lot of structure. There was always something on the horizon that I was working towards. And then when you step out of that and you, like I say, have that blank canvas to create something that will hopefully lead to fulfillment and happiness and a healthy lifestyle, there's just a lot of self-doubt and a lot of responsibility for you to get up every morning. And, you don't have to be at your office desk at 8 a.m. You have to get out of bed and be like, right, so... at work, I would be working on a case, and every 6 minutes would be a unit of time that I would record and work towards billing in the legal world. Whereas here, I'm like, right, well, I need to kind of create my own to-do list. And some days that's great. And I'm really inspired and motivated. And then every so often you'll be like, oh, what am I doing? Like, where is this going? Like, and it's something, I'm part of another group, a group of women called Boost Women. And we met just over a year ago. So after my breakdown and that 5 months out of work, when I went back to London, that's that first week on the project was the Escape the City breakfast I went to. And then I went to Google Campus, and they do a women's breakfast once a month. Mm-hmm. And I met this group of women, and they are all entrepreneurs who are kind of all branching out, trying to create their own careers or businesses or paths in life. And I think it's quite common amongst all of us, and it's great to have them kind of there, even if we're separated by distance, is everyone has energetically like peaks and troughs. And when you're working within a team in a law firm or, in an ad agency, wherever, a medical team, some days that you're going to go in and be like, oh, but someone else will be like ramped up and they'll drag you up, and you kind of even each other out to kind of get the job done. But when you're doing everything for yourself, it's a lot harder on those days when you're consumed by self-doubt or uncertainty, or the mountain that you've got to climb to get to where you want to go seems overwhelming. It's really hard when you don't have others to kind of say, come on, it's fine, we'll be fine. I'd definitely say the lack of structure and that element of uncertainty as to where it's all going is exciting, but at the same time it's really it can be really difficult, I think.
I always think excitement and sort of scary comes together, and I guess that's the other side of the freedom that we've so desperately been craving. You no longer have that boss who tells you what to do. You can do whatever you want, but that also, as you said, brings a lot of responsibility. You can't blame your boss for being annoying, or like some meeting. As you said, you're really choosing what to do with every minute in your day. You mentioned the group then of women. What else has supported you during that time then to get a bit more structure maybe and to bring you up when you've had the troughs?
Probably going to sound kind of verging on romantic, but I guess because of my situation in that my actual marital home is with where my husband works. So when I remove myself from my friendship group in London and my work colleagues and my career and the life that I kind of lived Monday to Friday, and then during that 5-month period in Northern Ireland, he pretty much was my main day-to-day support, really. And I think it was through kind of his probably I'd say stubbornness, who wasn't just going to let me kind of lie in bed every day and wallow for those 5 months. It was him kind of dragging me out, trying to get me back into the things that I used to love doing, trying to get me back on a bike, or going for a walk on the beach there, even when it was like raining, which is most of the time in Northern Ireland. Just trying to encourage me, and aside from obviously financially supporting me throughout that time, and just being like a really good friend, and also accepting that there was, I think he knew himself, there was a huge shift in, like, obviously when he met me, I was this high achieving lawyer, and then I think he was starting to realise that actually that I was probably never going to go back to that role. I was in this period of transition, or the quarter life crisis, or whatever it's called now. And that actually I was just turning into someone else, and that can break relationships. But thankfully, touch wood, it definitely hasn't been smooth sailing for us. But it's just kind of accepting and supporting that each day I'm trying to work towards something that he actually says he admires, because it takes a lot of courage to try and create something for yourself out of nothing. And although it made me unhappy, the easier route would be to just return to what I was doing and just wait till I unraveled again in a few years' time. Because I know what I'm doing in my legal role. Like, I'm comfortable doing it. But trying to create your own business or work on your own project and get something launched, just takes a lot of courage and putting yourself out there, and you get a lot of knockbacks, and you have to be really resilient. And so he's been a huge support for me. But also the Boost women, like my other friends as well. But these group of women are, again, we just, like I said, we met at a campus and we all did the whole add each other on Facebook, created a little like Facebook chat group. And then it was like, well, we'll create our own private page. And then we'd meet someone who's really inspiring and then introduce them to the group. And it's grown from 6 women, and I think we're about 20 now, of people who are launching their own dining businesses in London, to lingerie companies, to digital nomads and social media consultants, and kind of pooling your talent and women helping women, which I think is amazing. So even if you don't particularly need anything and you see someone else, it's the whole sharing economy. Like, I could help you and you might not, I could help you, but I might not need anything from you in return. But another woman in the group might be able to help me, and you just kind of help each other out. And there have been a few occasions where I have put just a little message in the group being like, "What am I doing?" And you know that you'll get a Skype call being like, "It's fine, this is normal." And I just think that's an incredible thing that. You know, so people that you've known a year from all over the world, met in London, and now are friends and are helping each other to really succeed and believing in one another, I think.
That sounds like, amazing. A good combination of sort of the like-minded people who are doing similar things and supporting you, as you said, women entrepreneurs helping each other, and also the really strong support of your husband. I think good for him, because as you said, it can be tough if you have maybe a weaker and more superficial relationship. Then you know, that title and that kind of lifestyle, the person you were before, is changing so much that it can put pressure on the relationship. And if the other person isn't sort of prepared to follow you on that journey, it can be quite difficult. So it's great to hear that he's been there for you and that's worked out.
No, that's no, he has. He's also very good at, much to my annoyance at times. You've probably, I think anyone setting out kind of in the startup or entrepreneur along that path, you can sometimes have days where you literally don't stop and you are powered by your passion for what you're doing and you want to get so much done. And after a few consecutive days of that, where I'm spending like from the minute I get up to the minute I roll into bed on my laptop in the dining room, and he's like, you need to get out the house, like, or he'll come in from work and be like, well, what have you, like, have you left the house today? Like, have you been for a run? Have you, you know, gone out for a coffee? Have you done something where you've gone out and like been in the real world? And I'm like, no, because I've got to write this article and this blog post and I need to email this person. And he's really good at being like, no, like, shut your laptop, we're going out, like, we're going to go for a cycle or whatever. And that can be really annoying, but it's also having someone recognize that, like, the balance, which is just like there wasn't balance before in my kind of last career. There's that danger when you're driven by passion and excitement sometimes that then the balance imbalance again, but in a different way. So
But it's funny because, as you said, because we're so passionate, I guess we're self-motivated, and it's again those high achiever, smart, ambitious people who sort of apply themselves to that new idea. That the danger is, I guess, that you get into an equally imbalanced life as well. So it's great to have a partner or friends who sort of ground you and remind you to go for a bike ride or a run or whatever it is, to go out for a drink maybe one evening and take the weekend off. So what's the best part now of your lifestyle?
Being able to spend more time outdoors. I was looking at freelancing. I would have been able to go to a boot camp class at lunch or whenever in the day I would choose to do that. And I had kind of autonomy to that degree, but it was in the city, and I love visiting cities, and I find them really inspiring places. But I'm from Derbyshire, near the Peak District, and I've always been more of a country person. Dream of living in the mountains one day. So, and I'm super excited because I'm actually off to Switzerland in the Alps this summer to actually
Great.
work on the project that I'm working on now. So that's amazing. But it's just being able to be around greenery, I guess, and going for a run, but rather than being like on roads and having to stop at traffic lights and things, I can just take off and run through the woods or fields and things. So that's been amazing. Spending more time at home has been amazing. And like having more time, time is like so like in short supply, I guess. Or like we've all got the same amount of it, but it's just consumed by so much, and we all have so many pressures that to have this time to spend on figuring out what I'm doing and then throwing myself at what I want to do, and that's been a really good change for me.
Good, happy to hear it. And if someone else is listening and maybe either working as a lawyer or at least in that type of job and sort of reaching that point when they're feeling this can't go on and sort of, I guess, hopefully before their body says stop, but if they're on that brink, what one piece of advice would you give to them?
To trust their intuition, because I think it's the best guidance we'll have. We often, how many times, and I've said it myself, and I've got friends who have said it over the last few years, and you just want someone to come and tell you what to do. You're not afraid of the hard work or making the change. You just want someone to just say, it's okay, like this is what you need to do instead. But there isn't anyone. They can help you, and life coaches are great, and career coaches and counselling's great, but no one can really know whether something's right other than yourself. And so if you're sat at the desk and it doesn't feel right, then you just need to trust in yourself and to try, and it's so difficult to make decisions based upon that instinct and your intuition and what you want, and definitely what you want rather than what you think you want, rather than fear of, well, what if it goes, like I used to think, well, what if it goes wrong? And somebody in India said, you're still a lawyer and you've still got great experience and no one can take it away from you. So, you just go, after a year, you just go back. Though a lot of these people who are contemplating leaving what they do to pursue something that they really love, or even just that they've got an inkling that, that would be cool to do for a bit. They're really often really intelligent, successful people. They've got a lot going for them, and I think even if it doesn't work out, they'll be absolutely fine. Even if the thing that they were going to throw themselves at doesn't work out, something else will happen along that journey, and they'll end up where they need to be. And I also heard, which I thought was really helpful, is that a lot of the things that we like dream of doing aren't new anymore. Like not like inventing the wheel or something, or space travel or whatever. Like a lot of stuff that people dream of doing has been done before, and if someone else has done it, then there's no reason why like you can't. And I think that's quite an empowering thing to just kind of bear in mind when you're that voice with the doubts telling you like, oh, you shouldn't do it for this reason or this reason.
So finding those role models, finding people who've done something, not to copy them, but just to be inspired and reassured that it's definitely possible. And then also trusting your intuition. I think that's such powerful advice. And I've been struggling with that myself, because when I quit, my intuition was definitely what drove me. It was, I think, the first and maybe last time I went with my heart rather than my head. But again, sort of the lawyer, sort of academic brain just goes very much for the rational and logic and intellectual arguments always, I think. Exactly. And the reasoning is like, oh, but these are the things that can go wrong, and not really sort of feeling and getting back in touch with that, I think, is so important. And probably, as you said, I grew up in a suburb, so I don't have the same connection with nature, but I definitely feel more open and inspired by the ocean. Out in the countryside, just went for a country walk yesterday, and you just feel much more open. I think that's one way of getting more in touch with that intuition and forgetting a bit about the all those shoulds and the expectations and the stuff that we've learned over all those years of school and uni and work and so on.
Yeah, I definitely resonate with what you just said about the years of being governed by my head, and almost kind of like prize myself on that ability to be a rational, logical woman who, I make the right decisions rather than like, does this feel right? And now I actually feel quite proud now that like I'm governed more by my heart, and if it might be logical to go back to work right now as a lawyer because I'll earn way more money than I'm earning right now. But that's a logical perspective, but I don't love that idea. And so I'm just going to go with what feels right and what feels good, rather than what I think is the right thing to do. So
love it.
Your head has a habit of being able to convince you of it was like something else I read recently, which was your head can pretty much argue for and against anything. So when you're making a decision, you're kind of screwed because you can often think, well, how many times do you write like a for and against list, and your head's very good at like brainstorming everything. But when it comes to the actual like nitty gritty of, right, well, which side am I going to fall down on? Like, often it's your heart or your instincts, your intuition that is like, that's the right thing to do. So yeah, definitely listen to that little voice inside your gut anyway. Yeah, I
think you can never have 100% of the information, right? And it's not comparing like for like. So if you've got, okay, there's more money here, but other advantages or the disadvantages, and then the other side you've got, okay, you're earning less, but it's very difficult to compare an emotion on the one hand with sort of a financial value on the other and that kind of thing. So as you said, in the end, it's your feeling and sort of your intuitive choice. And I think there is no wrong choice as well. As you said, the worst case scenario probably isn't as bad as you thought, and it's not like it's sort of forever. You can always pivot, as they say, and change, evolve, go back, try something else. So
definitely.
Okay, so you mentioned that you've got a few different projects on. Is there a website or somewhere where people can find you and read more about what you're up to?
So I'm just, I've got a blog at the moment, which is lauragwilliam.com. And so I try and post there. I've not been posting as regularly as often, but that's because, as you know, I've moved house in the last 3 weeks. And I've done it alone, actually, which is quite an empowering thing to do. Very stressful, but,
big changes.
So I try and post on there. That's more just to kind of hopefully that's quite a broad ambit of things that I write about, and I guess post on other people's blogs as well. And that's just more hopefully to inspire people who are going through mental health problems, and specifically depression, and just feeling really low and unhappy, that you can come out of the other side. And I hope to write more about that. And hopefully I'm going to be launching later this year or early next year, which I'm working on now, a project that incorporates my yoga teaching with yoga philosophy and food. So again, those things that for years, when somebody said, like, why did you become a lawyer? It was never, I can't believe I'm saying, well, you're kind of like, oh, I should never say that. It was like a dreaded question during the number of levels of interviewing processes for law firms was, why do you want to study law? And I always used to find it really difficult because I don't really know why I did. And I think it was a combination of having really shit careers advice and somebody just looking at your grades and saying, they're really good. Have you thought about being like a doctor or lawyer? And you're like, really? You look back now and you're like, really? Like they were the two things. And I'm super squeamish, so I ended up going down the legal route.
Good choice.
And but I look back and for years I used to say that if I wasn't a lawyer, I'd love to be a chef. And so I've always been a passionate home cook. So I'm excited to it's not until you kind of step away and start to unpeel the layers and have that blank canvas again that you start to pursue those feelings, like what makes me happy, like where am I in my flow, where I can just literally lose myself. And gravitating towards recipe books and trialing things and stuff like that has been something that I keep returning to. And so I think that passion's been ignored for too long. So I'm hopefully incorporating that with yoga. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Amazing. Sounds really exciting. Well, fingers crossed, and look forward to seeing that then later this year or next year.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Laura. I found that really fascinating and certainly very familiar to me and to other people I've spoken to, and some really good insights, I think, for people who are in that sort of wavering point. So thank you so much for your time and for sharing your story.
Oh, no, and thank you, Anna. Thanks for interviewing me, and it's been really nice I've enjoyed talking to you.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad I found you in the Facebook group. So
yes, and thank you for reaching out. It's definitely the most interesting thing that's come from reaching out to Escape the City. So yeah, it's been great.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you very much.
Hopefully we can meet in person one day as well.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.